Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Ron.
I'm Lindsey.
I'm Jay.
And we are here to talk about Justice for Annie, a Moment of Truth movie, starring Danica McKellar, Peggy Lipton, Terry David Mulligan, Gwyneth Walsh, Martin Cummings, and Lachlan Monroe. Directed by Noel Nosek, based on the case of Deanna Herbert Wild, and released in January of 1996 on NBC. That's right, kids. This is a made-for-TV movie. And it's not just made for any TV, it's made for network TV. Which I think is probably a first for this show, Jay. We have done in the past, we had our, if you're a longtime listener to the show, you remember our Unauthorized series where we covered some of the best of the lowlights of Lifetime movies. But this is like our first authentic, like, made for TV, made for network TV. Like, money was spent on this. NBC promoted it, made a big deal about it movie. Am I correct?
You are 100% correct. We've never done a straight made for network TV movie in all the years of Film Strip. So, hey, I've talked about them on other shows, and even I think on some of the session shows that I have some like favorite miniseries and stuff. But unless you count the Stephen King's It from 1990, which I don't, because that's a miniseries, we've never done like one of these movie of the week things here.
It's kind of an interesting bit of history, right? To think at one point, like, you could turn on network TV and the big deal would be they would be showing you a movie.
Oh, what are you talking about, man? This was like non-football season, Sunday night. Like what my family did was come home and watch that, right? Liz, I hear you saying the same thing.
Well, yeah, and I was thinking about the made-for-TV movie earlier, and now a lot of movies are made to TV. They go straight to Netflix or straight to Prime or straight to whatever streaming service you're watching. Really, these made-for-TV movies were ahead of their time, if you think about it.
I mean, they really were. I mean, it was a way to keep people watching the small box because everybody on television was convinced that, oh, theaters are going to ruin us, so that's why they started doing color TV, right? And then, movies started doing 3D, so then TV's like, well, fine, we'll just produce our own stuff straight here, and that's when you get these kind of things. And what I think is fun about this movie in particular is it's the forerunner of what I call like the true crime culture takeover that we are currently living through now, that's been going really before Serial, the podcast, did the thing. Like 48 Hours has been on TV forever, and it's Dateline and stuff like that. But I feel like this movie was a thing that did those before those became things.
I mean, it's always been a thing, right? It's always been a thing for TV. The made-for-TV movie was one of the more interesting things that came about in the 80s. Right. And it started with like Columbo doing fictional things. And I think they realized around the time of Joey Buttafuoco that there was intense money to be made by mining real stories and people's real pain for goofy fictionalized versions of things.
Weren't there like warring versions of the Joey Buttafuoco, Amy Fisher thing?
There were warring versions of this movie, Jay.
No way. I did not realize that.
Yep. There was another version called Death Benefit that was even more no budget.
Wow.
And then you have this one, which is the big budget version of the same book, which the book, I believe, was also called Death Benefit.
Okay, that would make sense. I feel like true crime novels have been around a long time, Anne Rule and all of that kind of thing.
And it's kind of like the how there were a couple different versions of there were two versions of that, the thing about Pam.
Oh, that's the
miniseries, and there's
I remember like Dominic Dunn used to write these kind of salacious books about like all these super rich people that would get involved in murder stuff, like the Woman Scorned, the Betty Broderick story that had Elizabeth Baxter Burney from Family Ties on it, playing this woman who lost her mind and shot her husband, and then like the two Mrs. Grenvilles that I
Hmm.
remember distinctly. I've read that book and I've seen the movie a few times, and those kind of things I think I always remember. Those seem to always be like ripe for this kind of adaptation. Is something like that. One of the well, and it's a two-parter, so I guess you could call it a miniseries. There's one called Fatal Vision, which is a great piece of like journalism study anyway, as an aside, but is a story that I've known about since I was a kid and still keep up with to this day. But um, if you've ever seen Gary Cole, the dad from Talladega Nights and Lumbergh from Office Space and about a million other things, one of his first roles was playing this guy, Jeffrey McDonald, who was convicted of murdering his family. And when you watch him and then you watch interviews with Jeffrey McDonald, you realize like how cold he had him down. Like he was really good. And I've heard him talk about it a few times, but it's one of the earliest things I've ever seen. But this kind of thing, it was big. And I feel like NBC was like some of the biggest purveyors of this kind of stuff. They seem to really kind of hone in on these things.
Yeah, NBC was really involved in the early stages of this true crime thing, and I do remember um, a few years ago, my wife, who is a big true crime person, wanted to watch Fatal Vision, and we watched like a bad version on YouTube
Yep.
and had a blast.
Yep. I can talk about that for hours. In fact, I think she and I probably have had conversations about that case before, but and
So are either of you into the true crime? I guess it's not even really a fad now. Like I watched the O.J. Simpson trial when it happened because everybody did, but
yeah. I still listen
never
to the
got
Generation
into the
Y
true crime.
podcast. I still listen to
Okay.
Justin and Aaron, and I'll still listen to Kelly Brink's stuff when she puts stuff out because I find them just part of you having talked to them and over this medium, you feel like you know them a little bit better. Not, but I just like the way they approach things and handle it. But I
Hmm.
also feel like they were, particularly Aaron and Justin, were in on it really early, and now
Hmm.
there's like 5,000, murder podcasts out there.
Yeah.
And a fun thing that ties true crime back to things I'm interested in, more interested in anyway, is Joe Bob Briggs, under his real name of John Bloom, wrote the book Evidence of Love about the Candy Montgomery murders that was turned into the HBO Max miniseries Love and Death, starring Elizabeth Olsen
I did
as
not know
Candy
that.
Montgomery. Yeah,
I did not
and
know he wrote that.
and I'd never read it, and Holly got it for me, and
Oh,
it's excellent.
I,
I still haven't finished it yet because it takes me. It's a paper book, so
mhm.
it's like takes an effort to read a paper book, but
Hmm.
it's it's
Yeah.
it's fabulous.
I've seen that series with Elizabeth Olsen though. I saw both of them. The one that was on Hulu that had Jessica Biel in it, I think, and
Yeah,
then
and
uh,
have you seen the movie starring Barbara Hershey
I had not
and
seen that
Brian
one.
Dennehy? It's amazing.
Okay,
It's really good.
I love the one with Elizabeth Olsen. The Bill one's fine, but I love the one with Elizabeth Olsen. I thought she gave a whale of a performance, but it is a wild story. Lindsay, are you familiar with that story at all? Because
I am not.
it is wild. It's one of those like could probably only happen in that time period and that place, but it's a really, really interesting story.
Yeah.
But speaking of wild stories, we're talking about a pretty wild story tonight.
A
It
true
is a
wild story.
it is a real life murder that happened, and this is basically how it happened. Is in real life is depicted in this. And does is anyone else other than me was anyone else other than me familiar with this before I said, "Hey guys, look what I found," and drop this in the group chat?
No, I wasn't.
No, I think I had heard something about the case at one time, but I had no idea this was a thing. No, this was new to me. So that's always fun, but I was not familiar with this.
Well, the reason why we're covering this is because the mother of the real life Deanna Hubbard Wild was my social studies teacher in high school. And
Whoa.
I was in high school about the time this movie debuted
Oh my
on NBC.
stars.
And I remember her also being interviewed on like 2020 or Nightline or one of those type of shows about the murder previously. So, interestingly enough, I know a real life participant in this story, and it is the dedicated mother who hunts down her daughter's killers and makes friends with the guy from Brooklyn or whatever.
Did the real life mom consult on this movie at all? Do you know, Ron? Like sometimes movies get like, the actual people to kind of come on set and give
Right.
feedback.
Right.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So
She was
this is
not
truly
really.
unauthorized.
Yeah, she was not a consultant on it. I'm pretty sure she got paid for the original book that they based this off of.
Okay.
But if you watch the other version of this, Death Benefit, they they're very nice to her as a person in a way that well, both of them are actually much nicer to her as a person than they probably should have been, because she was not an especially nice person, at least the time I knew her.
Interesting.
Very
And
Interesting.
interesting.
from people who were friends with her daughters, um, they would concur that she was not, exactly the easiest person to have as your mother. Let's
There
put it that
were a
way.
few whispers of that throughout the movie, I thought.
And there is an important plot thread that they kind of hint at in the movie, but they don't really get into. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Um, Before we go any further, I feel like we should consult Chat GPT to see if we can get a a generative text version of the plot of this film.
I love that Chat JPT has become a thing for
It
us.
really has. What was a side joke for a group text has now become my life. So all because I think Ron's tired of writing the plot summaries. Okay, so I'm going to leave out all sorts of details, but this is the Chat GPT version. So, like, imagine this kind of cute, precocious, but totally spoiled teenager who doesn't listen to any advice any adult gives her, um, and just continues to make horrendous decision after horrendous decision about her life, including running off with her boyfriend who has nothing going except that he's enlisted in the military but doesn't seem to be going anywhere and is a total jerk to her. She runs off, she marries him, in spite of the fact that her mother protests deeply, but you kind of get it because mom's a little bit of a problem to deal with. And anyway, after less than a year, she realizes, oh yeah, this marriage thing isn't working, so bounce that. And before she's divorced, she starts dating this other dude and just moves in with his parents who adopt her basically, but not like officially, because all they do is go to the local state farm and get insurance plot for her so that then the husband can throw her off a cliff and they like, oh gosh, oh goodness, precocious child died. And then they're going to cash in on that. Never mind that the ink's barely dry on the policy. And they did not realize they were messing with the mom who was maybe the original Karen of all time. Because I know I'm talking about the Phillies Karen, I mean like the serious Karen or the rebels that Rainbow was helping out once upon a time. She was not going to let it go, and she keeps badgering the police and the DA, even though this death happened in a different state. She's going to make sure that the people in Seattle pay for it, and ultimately they bring this family to justice, and they get enough evidence to convict the mom of indeed conspiring to kill the daughter, and they would have convicted the dad, but he dies before they get a chance to do that in real life and also in this movie. But justice is had for Annie in the end, and nobody collects the insurance money. But all this could have been avoided with just some good counseling and maybe learning how to listen to each other. The end.
Okay,
No real
great.
people
Well
were
put.
besmirched in the writing of this. I'm basically
I
talking
think
about this movie. So,
I
that
mean,
plot
lots of
summary was very much like the movie was for me, Jay. It was lean. There wasn't much air in it. It just kind of kept on going.
and they leave some things out of this to make our hero, the Peggy Lipton character, into a more likable person, right?
yeah,
Um,
I hear you saying that too, but I will say, and because I knew what you had told me offline about, like he was kind of a difficult person or whatever. but I do feel like they also don't totally shy away from the fact that she maybe was a little difficult, and um, you know, they don't completely wash over that. I was gonna say, I don't think at least.
Yeah, I think the way she, and I mean, I guess, well, they make Annie look pretty dumb through
Right? Yeah, poor Danica
the movie.
McKellar. Yeah.
Yeah. They just make her look like a dumb, immature 18, 19-year-old, which who wasn't?
Well,
But yeah, I
we'll
think
get there.
that when she came home the time, and I'm going like I'm jumping, more into the middle of the movie, but
Mhm.
topical. But when she came home after her husband was deployed, and her mom was like, "You can't go out." And I'm like, "Dude, she's 19 and married. Like, let
Right.
her let her live her life a little
I was gonna
bit."
say I don't think curfews work anymore at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's an adult for all intents and purposes.
Mhm.
So they tap dance around a lot of issues with Annie. They bring up the fact that she's dyslexic. They bring up the fact that she's kind of naive. They bring up the fact that
Yeah.
she's a little sheltered, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
So, what they're tap dancing around is that the real life version of Annie was, what is the politically correct way to say this? Um, Delayed in functioning.
Okay.
She
Okay.
had an IQ of about 80 to 85. Um, if you put any stock in IQ tests, a lot of difficulties in school, very immature, very naive, very, very trusting. Um, you know,
Well,
uh,
that
go ahead,
I
Jay.
I was
do,
gonna say
yeah.
that makes this even sadder then, because now I realize this was somebody who got exploited by a lot of people, like
Yeah.
literally to her death, which is they if I know why they didn't, because it's hard to do that even in the 1990s in a movie or whatever, but that would have made this much more sympathetic.
And I
Yeah.
feel like it would have made the mom a little bit more sympathetic in this.
Yeah.
Um, Never
Yeah.
mind the fact that the real mom sent her other daughter to military school or to a boarding school, excuse me, not military school. But just a little. There, I have an innate distrust of people who are like, I'm going to send my child off to boarding school so I don't have to deal with them. Um,
That did kind of come off that way, yeah. Like there's at one point where she's gonna go see her friends, and she's like, "You got to call me when you get there." Oh, mom. Well, okay, can't go unless you do. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just that was weird.
yeah, and the real life person, my former teacher, was a piece of work. Let's put it that way. Um, Not a bad teacher. Not a bad teacher.
I do want to say though, just to acknowledge that Ron, we're two dudes who grew up as teenage dudes, so we were a whole different set of Neanderthals dragging the knuckles here. I kind of want Lindsay's take on this as a former teenage girl who did grow up, and
I'll say, yeah, I'll give a little input on two different things. One, I have a cousin who is, I was going to say was, but she is dyslexic and she's super smart. But until she was in late elementary school, middle school, like no one knew. They just were like, oh, she's a problem child. She's not very smart. We're going to put her in all of the remedial classes with the, you know, troubled children. And she was just like, but I can do things. And then they figured out that she was actually dyslexic. And once they got her the appropriate, like, I honestly, I know nothing. I know very little about dyslexia as far as how to kind of cope with it. My brother has a version of it, but it's not exactly the same. But there's tutoring and different things that you can do. And once she got to that point, she like I mean, she's like really smart. She's got advanced degrees, but once she kind of hit that stride, people were like, "Oh, we're actually just assholes. She is smart. She just didn't, she was reading backwards. Our bad." So part of me was like, "Oh, maybe people just think Annie is dumb because they don't understand, or naive because they don't understand that she can understand this stuff, and she just never got the help, which honestly, shame on her mom, who is a teacher, who in
Hmm.
96 should have had the resources to get her, maybe not in Ohio, but should have had the resources to get her like whatever help she needed. And
Well,
then
the real life story takes place here in Kentucky, so there probably weren't any resources to get her the help she
okay,
needed. Like
Okay.
I
even
got
worse
no
than
beef with
Ohio.
Kentucky. My beef was with Ohio, Ron. So
That's fair.
Kentucky's great as far as I'm concerned.
That
But but the other thing too is like the she is, and as I remember turning 18, leaving, going to college, coming home, and my mom still wanted to treat me uh like I was still in high school, even though I'd been living on my own for a couple years at that point. But my stepdad was like, who was in the military, was basically like, when I was 18, I was, you know, deployed and doing stuff, and she's 18 and she's living on her own. She could do whatever she wants. Like, I don't care what time she comes home. And he had to be the one to advocate for me being treated like an adult to my mom. So I don't know if it's like a normal mother-daughter relationship, but that was very similar to what I experienced, is what Annie experienced with Carol.
that checks out just from like friends that I've had
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, very much like that. My wife's family a little different than that, because their deal was once you were 18, you were an adult, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of my friends and stuff, they would come home from college, like being at Auburn or Alabama, and they're in Greek organizations, they're having a good time, and then they come home, they're gonna be home at 10:30, and I'm like, that you probably 10:30 is probably when you leave, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so. I also remember always thinking about that, but I guess I don't know, maybe it's a little different. I'm sure it is different, for girls and stuff like that. But I want to go back to something you said there, about her learning like acumen and things like that. I feel like that would have been again another way to like humanize this story a little bit more for us. And
Yeah.
and if they had even made a thing about the fact that like her mom didn't do anything about it because she couldn't. There was nothing she had. She didn't have resources to like that kind of thing. I
Right.
feel like it would have just made it. It would have made her come off less like a Karen, like I joked about in the plot summary.
And I
Yeah.
think that there there at least was an attempt to kind of hint at that, both through the performance and through how other people are describing the character, like through of the Annie character, right? They make a point of, we didn't even think she was going to graduate high school and blah blah blah, and you know, so I feel like they didn't want to take it into um I feel like if Danica McKellar had tried to do like Simple Jack to steal a concept from Tropic Thunder, that it would have gone very poorly.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it would have.
That would not have played at all, even in 1996. So,
No.
And so I
And
feel like the whole point of her like not saying, not saying, well, we got you all this extra help, was an attempt to downplay that aspect of the real life story.
I could
yeah,
see that, but
I could
it
see
does.
that.
You do still feel for her though the whole way. Like I felt sorry for her at every turn because you can just see not only is she making like poor choices, some of which are just the product of youth, right? But some of which are also the product of she's easily manipulated by everyone around her. And maybe that's part of what they're trying to do with the quote fictionalized version of this. It's like this
Mm-hmm.
pattern of this poor woman who's been manipulated her whole life, and of course she would be lured to her death by these grifters.
And even her mom seems to be manipulating her throughout like half of the thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, with all the guilt trips and stuff like that. But then, what's wild is that her mom is genuinely doing it from a place of like, I care very much for my daughter. I don't want bad things to happen to her. Maybe she's a little overprotective, but you get that. And then when, I know we're jumping ahead, but when you see that the husband kind of keeps people, from talking to her, and then the mother of the next, family, doesn't even let her have any communication with the mom. And then the way they she plays it off in court. It's like, well, you were such a terrible mother. You let this girl grow up and not realize she can't wear, sandals on a mountainside and all this kind of, silly stuff. It was, it's awful, because it puts the mom back on trial for.
Which was so dumb because she didn't even know she was going up on a
Yeah,
mountainside.
truth, right? Yeah, that's also a huge plot problem. Like this, well, I don't want to be. I'm not a lawyer, and I've never played one on TV, but I have friends who are, and I can just in the back of my head watching this, I'm going like, if I somehow could have strapped Michael Scott down into a chair and made him watch this, the amount of legal nonsense he would have just lost his mind over things. So, and
Yeah.
maybe he should have, because but this is what's funny is like this is so typical of every like courtroom scene that I ever grew up watching. I thought this was how it was done. You know?
Yeah, I expected like Matlock to be waiting outside for his turn.
Right. That would have even been more awesome.
Yeah, Matlock versus uh Raymond Burr. Which one was Raymond Burr?
No,
Ironside?
Perry Mason. Well, he was
Perry
yeah.
Mason.
Yeah. So
I would like to have seen that. I remember they did some Perry Mason movies around this time that were pretty good.
they did. They did some good Perry Mason movies. I look when Andy Griffith did Matlock, that was not a far cry for me because I'd seen him play that attorney in Fatal Vision. To jump back to an offline conversation we were having about that. So
To jump back to a sessions.
yeah.
That's a joke from offline. Nobody cares, but we're here to amuse ourselves mostly. Okay, so let's get back to the nonsense that is this movie.
Well, can we talk about Helen Preston, the villainess, for a minute here? By
Oh,
the way,
please.
she is a special piece of like, librarian from hell meets like person you call at your dealership to make an appointment, and she just is going to make your life. She works for the DMV in another life. Like she just makes everything so difficult, and it's almost like they paint her so broadly that she's so awful. Like did you ever for once believe anything she said?
No. To me,
No.
and tell me if I'm wrong, she's like if Edie McClurg was evil.
Yes, that's a good call. I had not thought about that, but yes. The evil Edie McClure from like the secretary from Ferris Bueller, for people that don't know who we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
and she was the neighbor on a bunch of different sitcoms and
The Hogan
would
family.
Hogan
Not
family
Ron's, but
specifically, yeah, and would
yeah.
drop in and um
Which
just
started out as Valerie's family. I can't believe I know that, but
wow.
hey,
All right,
Jason
Jay,
Bateman.
perhaps you can answer me a question. Did Sandy Duncan have a phony eye?
There's so much internet lore about that. I don't know. I don't know what to believe in.
She
Holly,
was so good as
yeah.
Helen, though.
Oh,
Like,
And
yeah.
she was,
she's still a working actress. She's still around and doing stuff. Like
yeah. Like, she was so believable as that person. Just I can't even, the little quirks and twinges in her face and just very cool, calm, and collected. Like you knew she was definitely murdering people for money. That was never a question. And I mean, the fact that the structure of a movie started with just kicking it right off the bat
kicking her
with the
right off the
death.
mountain.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And it's like,
The
okay, well, you know what's going to happen. So naturally, you don't trust her. But I think even if we didn't see that bit, that she still couldn't be trusted. She was sweet, like Professor Umbridge is sweet in Harry Potter.
Yes. Yeah.
You
She's a
know,
good
like,
pull.
I
yeah.
also felt like I had seen her on an episode of Handmaid's Tale at some time. She's not, but she could be one of those people. So
I mean, she's been on enough other stuff, you know,
I
crazy
looked it
shows doing
up.
crazy things.
Yeah, but I mean, I love the Dolores Umbridge call Lindsay because that she definitely gives that off.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. And she's still working as of 2024. She did like 5 episodes of a
Yeah.
TV series.
Yes, she's been running since what 77 now as of this recording, and still working. So
Yeah, and she's great in this. She's very unlikable, but in a very specific Midwestern nice sort of way.
Yes,
Midwestern
that's
evil is a special kind of evil.
Well, it's
that.
that Midwestern nice that's completely phony,
It is terrifying. That's that's
but it's
the
also, yeah,
first
it's
time
also a
I
little.
found, yeah, the first time I found myself in the Midwest. I remember calling my dad, who's born and raised in upstate New York, but still New York. And I was like, Dad, did you know that there are like states full of nice people? And his response was, expletive deleted. That sounds like a nightmare. And I was like, it is a nightmare. It's terrifying. This is the scariest thing I've ever experienced.
I mean, there's nothing scarier than small town America, and just because, I mean, gosh, how many stories and shows have been made about that, right? But it's the ordinary places where the most unbelievably awful things happen.
And they do a really good job of slowly building out her creepiness factor.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got to give credit to the script from Joyce Heft Brotman, who we didn't mention in the opening, but that's who wrote the script. Um, by the time we get to the end, she's basically a supervillain, right?
Oh,
She's practically twirling a mustache that she doesn't have.
Because her husband's all scared and she goes, she's so cool, calm, and collected. Just veins full of ice.
Yeah, the
well,
casual disdain with which she treats her husband is really amusing to me.
And
yeah,
he
but
can't leave her because then he'll die.
well, I mean, but he's the one that like did the thing too, which just shows like there's manipulation from one side because you have the person's best interest at heart. But you're still manipulating them, but Peggy Lipton, the mom, is trying to manipulate the daughter to turn her life around, come back home, all that stuff. And
Hmm.
then you've got the manipulation from the other side where no, I'm going to literally lead you to your death. And to do that, I'm going to take this very weak-minded man and make him like do my bidding. She's like this Spider Woman almost,
Yeah,
which is very super villainous. Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
The widower or the widow, Black Widow in Clue.
Black
That's what
Widow.
I was thinking of.
Yeah, she could have been like an evil of the week on 90210 later seasons or something like that. She should have been that awful landlady or whatever.
I'm really surprised she didn't show up as an awful landlady in something because she has big landlord energy to me.
Yeah, right.
It
Yeah,
does have big
her and
landlord
Lynn Shay
energy.
could have vied for that in the bowling movie with Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray. The-
Kingpin?
yeah,
Wow.
Kingpin. Thank you, thank you. I couldn't think. So.
I don't know if it's a stay tuned or not, but a Kingpin reference in 2025 is pretty outrageous, Jay. I'm very happy about
I
that.
haven't thought about the movie in a long time. I don't know why that just popped in my head, but yeah.
But no, yeah, and that's the thing that this movie has that I think other versions of the story might not have. They have a really great cast. Like it's the material is not great, not especially great, but like it's elevated by like Peggy Lipton's really good. And
Well, yeah,
all your
that's the
little
thing. Like these TV
character parts,
movies
yeah.
can be either way, right? They can be so cheesy that they're fun, like some of those Lifetime movies we talked about,
Yeah.
or they can be so like harrowing that you're just engrossed by the story. Fatal Vision would be my example for that. But then there are a lot of them are like this, where they're in the middle, where like the story itself is kind of like you can tell they're taking all manner of liberty with it or whatever, and you're just sort of there to go with it. But it's elevated by good actors and good writing. And
Mhm.
that plays different when you get those elements in place where people take it seriously even though maybe it doesn't deserve it, like Alligator, for instance. I mean, we talked about that. That's just
Hmm.
some B-level garbage, but they got real actors in it all of a sudden, and wow, it's amazing what it does for the script.
Good point. I mean, yeah, they've got Winnie Cooper in this one, so
Yeah, were either of y'all big Wonder Years fans, by the way? I will admit now that I was not. I knew who she was and I was aware of that show, but I was just not over the moon about that like a lot of people my age were.
I I watched a lot of it. I don't know if I liked it, but I think I watched it because it was the most palatable show on TV, or at least on the channels that we had. So I'm familiar with it. I think it was too dramatic for my taste. I much preferred anything on Nickelodeon over the Wonder Years if I had the option.
100%. But I watched a lot of it because my parents watched it, being of that generation of the late 60s Vietnam era.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and I honestly, I don't think that show, this child cast aside, I don't think that show was for anybody under like 25.
Yeah, I wonder what I would think of it if I went back to watch it now. That really was what, because I hated Seinfeld when I was in high school, and now I've seen every episode like 10 times, right? Because it's so much better when you're an adult and living adult problems.
Right. Like I feel like I didn't watch this when it came out, but I feel like I would have just sort of blown it off and been like, eh,
Yeah,
whatever. But watching it now, it's like, okay, this is, and I'm not a parent or anything like that, but I'm just older and think about things differently. And you watch this now, and again, you just see the at every turn the terrible things that happen and what could have been done to avoid them, and
yeah.
maybe you appreciate it differently.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward story, with a lot of interesting twists and turns, and I enjoyed the fact that halfway through the movie we get introduced to this random Brooklyn detective
Right.
who has a 5-year old apparently, even though he looks like he's about 50.
So I was
I
making notes, and when he just randomly showed up, I just wrote, how the hell does Brooklyn end up in Seattle? And then, of course, that question's answered later. I was like,
Yeah, they
that's
lampshade it,
fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
but they try to pass that guy off as a guy named McAdams, and he does not have a face of a McAdams.
Not remotely.
He
No.
doesn't.
But
No,
it
he's
is
got
that
the
great character that you have to have the dogged detective that believes in the
Yeah.
story. You got to have that one person on the force that's willing to tell the mayor to get off my ass and blah blah blah.
yeah, and he's done. I don't know if he's still alive or not. I think he might be retired now, but he had done like 250 episodes of General Hospital in the
Wow.
That's
2000s.
the face I knew him from because I did see a lot of General Hospital as a kid in the summer, like growing up and stuff, because mom
I
Well,
watched
this
that.
is
kind
not
of,
during when you were watching it. This is like a few years ago.
Oh, really? Oh, God. I thought he was on it when I saw it. Okay, never mind. He looked familiar enough.
I kind of got hard eye vibes though from Detective McAdams and Carol Mills. Like it felt like if they didn't live so far away from each other, that they may have had some kind of special romantic relationship.
I could definitely see that. I feel like that's kind of what they were going for. I think they were trying to establish some sort of humanizing connection uh, for her, for the mom, to try to like ground her a little bit and to give her something other than I'm mad about my dead daughter and I'm sad about my dead daughter. But Jay, you probably recognize this guy from
Yeah.
Hill Street Blues.
That okay. There we go. That would make more sense because I did watch Hill Street Blues growing up, even though I wasn't probably supposed to. I did. So, the theme song, man. How could you get away from it? Well,
You couldn't.
no.
But yeah, another interesting character actor to show up in this movie. And I feel like that's really what elevates this and made it something even worthy of our discussion, right? Because you go through, the daughter becomes friends with these people. They kind of take her in. She's in Seattle. She's getting divorced. She's kind of foundering, and they see her as an easy target. Although you don't know that they've picked her as an easy target to begin with, right? You only see that after the fact when they go and find their next target after they kill Annie. And they're like, well, who should we kill next? And it's funny, the husband's like, maybe we should wait until this one dies down before we do any more killing.
But
And she is just the Dolores Umbridge, murder Umbridge is like all gung ho to like, let's off some more kids and get some more life insurance, and let's take them across town to the other life insurance agent. Like,
Yeah,
you
are
can't
they
wait
are
till
they
that check clears.
are they purporting that they've done this before through
Yeah.
this?
Well, the
Well, it sounds
detective
like there's proof that they've done it before.
the detective lays it out when he goes through the whole evidence chain where she
Yeah.
killed a husband, she killed her mom, she burned her mom's house down twice, and
Don't
has
forget the
done
3-year-old daughter.
the 3-year-old daughter that's heavily implied that she also killed. Like, this lady's not just a black widow, she is a
She's the scourge of the earth.
Yeah.
she's like Typhoid Mary, and
But
like she's leaving a wake of death in
I
her.
let me rephrase what I was asking. Was the real person like this, or was this just like the invention for this, TV movie?
From what I remember, the real person like had a sordid history of this kind of
Oh
stuff happening.
man. So what we're saying is Stephen King ripped Danny Wilkes off from this, is what we're saying.
Well, this probably she might have gotten the idea from Annie Wilkes. Let's
Oh,
be
okay.
honest.
Yeah. I don't remember when Misery was published as a book. So I thought, yeah, but um yeah. But I mean, you mentioned Dolores Umbridge. I also got a lot of Kathy Bates, Andy Wilkes off of this.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You know.
I guess my question too is her how I don't I guess she liked her son because he was still alive and well and on board with whatever. I always got the feeling though that her husband was definitely scared of her. That was pretty clear
Mm-hmm.
because he knew what she was capable of. Her son always kind of seemed like he was on board with the plan, but every now and then there was a moment where it was kind of like if he'll do exactly what she says, because if he doesn't, then he may be next on the chopping block. But she seemed to really like him.
Yeah, and it seems like there's always that little bit of a threat that maybe they would be the next ones hanging over their head,
Yeah.
especially the husband. And I feel like that explains a lot of why he goes along with this plan, right?
Uh-huh.
And why he keeps going along with these plans. I would imagine that she's made him slip and fall in more than one grocery store where they were a little short of cash one week, you know?
Got the hot coffee from McDonald's, the whole nine.
Yeah. The famous slipped on PP at the Costco scam,
Uh-huh.
that kind of thing from King of the Hill.
Yeah.
Sued a company for getting too many emails after they unsubscribed, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, and it makes sense. She's definitely the ringleader, and she's definitely the more cold blooded of the two, because the husband is afraid of her. That's pretty well established, and the son seems to have second thoughts on more than one occasion about this whole setup, right? And we even see it in some of his interactions with Peggy Lipton's character, that he's like, maybe you should just drop this before you end up falling down the side of a mountain too, lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, did y'all recognize the guy that played her son though, by the way?
He looked really familiar. To be fair, the resolution when I was watching it was really terrible. So I didn't even put it on a TV. I had to watch it on a small screen. So I don't know if it was better for you guys.
Yeah, he's been in lots of things through the years, but more modern audiences would know him as Hal Cooper from Riverdale. That's Lachlan Monroe, as a grown up. But he's always kind of played this sort of low rent William Zabka sidekick type.
Yeah.
He's Canadian, the Canadian William Zabka. You know,
I
that's
think I guess he was in an episode. I'm looking at
it's
his
IMDb.
page right now. Yeah, it looks like he was in an episode of Reacher. Honestly, that's probably what I recognize him from the most.
Yeah, he's been in lots of actually he's been acting for
Yeah, he's been
decades.
in a ton of stuff.
And a lot of he's been in tons of things, through the
Good for
movies and TV
him.
shows. But
I
Yeah,
love
see
it.
our
I love seeing actors working.
Freddy versus Jason review in the archives, folks.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
a brief mention of Lachlan Monroe. I'm pretty sure we
yeah,
talked about him in there.
yeah. We did talk about him in that. I remember that. So
How could we not?
well, I mean, he is in memory. He's more memorable than most of that movie. But again, listen to the archive. So for that. But I mean, he's been in just tons of stuff. But he's just got that
Yeah.
face, like when you see it, you're like, oh, that guy. But you see him here, and I mean, he's a baby. He looks like
Yeah.
so young. So
He does have a that guy face. Now I'm
mhm.
looking at better pictures of him and I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, I've seen him in so many things, but I couldn't tell you what his character name was in any of them
no, but
off the top of my head. Yeah, but he's in so many things. Like, look at his
mhm.
page. He's in several things every year.
Yeah. I mean, he was 30 when this was made, which is wild
That's
to think about.
crazy. Man,
He's
Yeah,
good
playing
for
this.
him.
he was in the original Scary Movie,
Yes.
which is crazy to
Yes,
think about.
he
Hmm.
was in the original Scary Movie. Thanks, Ron.
That would be the thing that I know him most from, although I'm sure he's
Yeah.
popped up in lots of different TV shows I've had to review over the years.
Oh, he was in White Chicks. He's been in all kinds of
Yep. I've
things.
seen him in
So
White Chick. This is so funny.
yeah. But to add to to go back to the character he's playing her or whatever, it is like he's down for it, but I don't know that he was aware that it was like going to be a total murderous plot. I didn't get that at least. I felt like he was just as naive as maybe poor Annie was, on the other side, just maybe not as
Oh,
behind it.
really?
Yeah,
I didn't get that vibe. I got the like he was aware it was happening, but he kind of took a back seat. I don't know. It was something about the interaction uh between him and maybe him and Annie. And then when the new girl came around, um, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like he kind of knew what was going on. Maybe he wasn't a participant directly, but
yeah,
he was just kind of like, whatever.
So he was just kind of like
Just mom being mom.
the honey trap.
Yeah,
I
kind of
guess
like the
so.
honey trap.
I guess so.
Which is a really funny way to put it, right?
Yeah,
But so the hard driving detective meets the I refuse to let this go mom. And I question how much they would allow the mom to be involved in the investigation because I feel like she was super involved in it. Like I think she had a big hand in decorating the evidence dungeon, such as it is.
yeah,
And I know that in real life, one of the main instigators of the actual investigation that uncovered the thing was my social studies teacher, who just would not let it go, which tracks with her personality in the classroom as refusing to let things go and being very, uh, my way or the highway sort of person.
Well, it
Um,
worked out. She found her daughter's murderers.
I mean, yeah, I
yeah,
get that.
and
I get
but
the reason why, and stuff like that. I'm with you. It wouldn't. I don't know how much I believe she was like in the police station doing stuff, but I can believe that she was just constantly. I mean, people figure out stuff on their own all the time,
Yeah.
as citizens, and so I could buy that. Maybe not lockstep with the cops. But the problem is like anytime what she would uncover, like there's no like due process to the way it was done. So the cops would never be able to use any of it. Like they would have to go figure that out on their own, and they can't do it just because you say it. Like they try to go and get it to replicate, but how often does that happen? Not much, right? So I don't know. I but that feels like more like plot contrivance than anything, and just like a shorthand to this woman wouldn't let it go and just kept talking to him about it and just bugging them and bringing stuff up, and then they finally started doing digging and they figured out, oh wait a minute, we've got this spider woman from hell out here. We need to take her out.
I think it helps that the detective sort of um, suspected her anyway, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, again, it's not like they, every time they put the poor woman on screen and they like show to her at all, again, she's twirling her invisible mustache going, "No, officer, I wouldn't hurt a fly."
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
keep doing these crazy shots of her at like the weirdest Dutch angle and these extreme close-ups of her face, and it's like Kevin Dunn shows up to guest direct it for a few minutes by like doing like
right.
zoom in and outs on her face that makes her look like she's throbbing with evil or something.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
Yes. Throbbing with Evil could have been the name of this movie, by the way.
I think that's a different kind of movie.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what y'all were watching on Sunday nights, but I didn't go there.
Throbbing with Evil sounds like a Lifetime movie about
It was starring Eric Roberts, no doubt.
oh, 100%.
I
Eric
do love
Roberts
that's a
as
side
Detective Sam Evil.
he's carved out this whole side career playing like the doctor dad boyfriend from hell on Lifetime movies. Yeah.
Yeah, Throbbing with Evil's like the title of a Silk Stockings episode.
Oh, Silk Stock. Now you're getting into my space now, man. I love that show. And it's a spiritual reboot called The Glades. If you've never seen that, it's basically Silk Stockings rebooted for the 2000s.
I
Hmm.
don't believe I've ever seen Silk Stockings.
Oh, Lindsay, go back and look up. You're in for a treat sometime.
Okay. Okay. I'll give it a
Yeah,
go.
we get through the investigation, we get through the big aha moment, and we have the moment where everyone is arrested, right? All of the perpetrators are dragged into jail, and then we get to our trial. And it had taken some
Oh,
convincing to get the DA to pick up the case, but they finally are able to, after they basically lay all of the evidence in his lap.
yeah, Rob, I'm sorry. When you said everyone's arrested, I just went to Rent immediately, like everyone's arrested. I mean, it kind of kicked off in my head.
That's not Rent. That's Team America.
Okay, it's Team America's version of Rent. Rent. So,
But yes.
Starring Winnie Cooper as Matt Damon.
you follow the train. Yeah. But no, okay, you're right. We have to get from investigation to courtroom drama at some point, right? Because this is all got to culminate in the trial, baby. Because as Mickey Loomis taught us in Scream 2, the trial's going to rock. And this one does not disappoint as far as TV trials go, because there's so much utter bullshit that happens in it, but it's this kind of utter bullshit you expect from this type of movie.
Yeah, even people who don't know anything about the court system are watching this and like, okay, yeah, that's kind of terrible. That's not real. But it's very satisfying to watch.
It is.
Because
It's a
you
nice
get,
recap of what happened too.
yeah, and it lets them use the footage of Winnie Cooper falling off the cliff yet again. Which is always funny to watch because it's like one step below Hans Gruber falling off the side of the Nakatomi Plaza building in Die Hard to me.
It's many steps below that scene, sir. Don't besmirch Yonda Bonds that way. So that's a great shot.
It is. I'll say it's a funny shot. I won't say it's a great shot. The compositing doesn't look good.
Oh,
these
okay,
days.
okay. Now, all these years later, okay, fair. But it's if you're going with the movie, you don't care about that.
It
So,
looked better on VHS.
it
But
actually
anyway,
looked pretty good on the screen too. But yeah, so
yeah, I mean, especially if you consider that's probably a Hitchcock homage.
maybe I don't know if that's what they were going for with that. It's more of the fact that, as we all know, they didn't tell Alan Rickman they were going to let him go in 2 instead of 3, so that his face actually, that's the expression of like, I'm going to kill all of you, as they dropped him onto he only fell like maybe 10 feet, but still, like when you're not expecting to be dropped and all of a sudden you are, not a face you can fake. So
Yeah.
But yeah, we get to our court case and we get both sides of the trial on the stand, which I don't know if that's realistic or not. Probably not, considering there's a whole speech about Annie was my daughter and I loved her. And I feel like they don't let you monologue in court.
I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
feel like that there was this whole like all these objections all the time about like complete hearsay, and then like every bit of testimony was totally hearsay. It's like, well, wait a minute. Like, I'm not trying to be, the legal purist here of this, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, you don't let people, that plays better as a victim statement. But maybe back then we didn't know. Maybe unless you were in a murder trial, maybe you wouldn't know any better. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure victim statements didn't become a thing until the 2000s anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
don't know
think
when those were.
still, then and now, it still depends on the judge. Like they have full control over what, I mean, there's precedent and there's different reasons they may have. I think in general they'll go by the rules, but I'm sure, a mom whose daughter died will pull at a judge's heartstrings, perhaps, especially if he thinks he's going somewhere. I could see it. I didn't think it was the most unbelievable part of the court scene. I watch a lot of lawyer shows, so
Yeah,
it
I couldn't
felt
have bought it.
fine.
I could have bought it if they made it like the trial ends, and she's talking to the media all the time. Like I would have bought that.
Yeah, yeah. I would have I don't have an issue with this. Here's what they don't prepare you for. If anyone listening has never been on a jury and they ever get called to be on a jury, it is the most boring thing in the whole world.
It's
There are a
awful.
few, like everything you see on TV are only the exciting parts, and that is maybe 5% of the
Mhm.
entire courtroom experience. The rest of it is so droning and boring.
My one day of jury duty, which I finally got to do this year, was a lot of sitting around and
Yeah.
listening to guest speakers from the municipal talk to us about what they did. It was like being at career day for that, which was interesting because I didn't know some of those things existed, but that's because of what I do for a living. But at one point, by about 2 in the afternoon, I'm like, is this happening or not? And then they finally said, well, it's not happening for y'all, so you're off the hook for 2 years. Have a great day.
Well,
I
that's
was
nice.
on the jury of an assault case where a guy shot a couple of dudes who had come by his house and threatened him with a gun. So I
I
was
was on the
on.
jury for a murder case.
Yeah, y'all have
Lindsay, you
had
got me
like
beat.
the jury duty experience. I cannot speak to this.
But it really was. Besides, I mean, I will say the chief medical examiner was the highlight of the entire trial. He was super weird and quirky and from New Zealand, but had lived in the US for like 30 years.
Interesting.
He was definitely pushing 70, but had just been doing this his whole life and nothing bothered him. Absolutely unbothered. And he'd clearly been on the stand before, but just still didn't give a shit about any of on-stand etiquette. Like the judge had to continuously remind him to not answer questions that weren't asked. So it was, he was, we, all
So,
of us on the jury absolutely loved him. We were like, that guy was awesome. Can we just have him here all the time?
so wasn't that dissimilar from what we got in this movie, is what you're saying?
No. There are always highlights in these trials, but I'll say this. It can be really boring. But I did I did like I liked how the trial in this went because there were moments of, okay, yeah, we saw that earlier in the movie. Of course, they're going to talk about it. We know what really happened as the viewer, and now we get to watch this crazy lady lie on the stand. But it did, I feel like it tugged at all of the right emotional strings just enough for a TV movie. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's what you want out of a TV movie, right?
Yeah.
You want it to kind of play to the back of the room and really go for the emotional jugular and really hook the audience of moms who are watching this on a Sunday night or whatever
Yeah.
at 9:45. You just want to get that audience. You want to get a few tears. You want to get them to think. You want to get them to hiss boo at the bad guy. And I feel like
And
this knocks that out of the park.
yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, because I was unfamiliar with this story and I had no idea how the verdict would go. So I really was on the edge of my seat, like, oh man, are they gonna say that she's guilty? Are they gonna acquit her? Like, what's gonna happen? I really was. When I saw that there were 10 minutes left, I was like, don't Google what happened. Don't Google what happened. Just stick with
Fight
it
the
and see.
temptation.
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard, but it really was. I found myself getting really like charged up to find out
Uh,
what the verdict was.
I wish I had done that because I Googled it before I ever hit play on the thing. It's like, all right, what is it about? And then I was like, oh, wow. And then I went down the rabbit hole and read, and I was like, okay, let me see how they play it. So I knew. I was like, oh, okay,
Ah,
well, I know how this is going to end. But
I
hey,
got the full experience. I went in
oh, that would
full
have been
virgin,
that'd have
knowing
been so much
nothing.
better, Lindsay.
It
Yeah.
was great. I highly recommend it. If you had, well, I mean, you're listening to this podcast, so who knows? You probably watched it at this point, but if you haven't, now you know how it ends, so it
No,
doesn't
nobody's
matter.
going to watch this. They're just going to click on the podcast and listen to it because they think we're great.
Or whoever loaded that on YouTube's about to get a mega bunch of clicks on that thing all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
You're
it's
welcome,
free on YouTube,
NBC.
guys. Just and there are multiple versions of it. So
Yes,
knock
Yep,
yourselves out.
just search
yep,
it.
I
But
watched
yep.
a terrible version that was like ripped from NBC, looked from a VHS tape, and then
that's the
after
one I
that one
watched.
showed up, it recommended a different version to me that would have been much better and much clearer and
Ah,
had been remastered
I watched
clearly.
the ripped, dang it, I watched the ripped NBC version
I know we all
too.
watched the
Yeah.
same VHS crappy rip where there's probably a
Don't
good version floating out.
don't do what we did. Don't make our mistakes, folks.
Yeah,
Don't
don't
do
Yeah.
it.
jump on the first one you see. Go to the second one you see because that's probably the good one.
Yeah, the cleaner one. Yeah. You can tell pretty quick too. Like don't watch it just on your phone or your computer. Throw it on an actual television. Yeah, I watched it on an actual television screen. I was like, God, this is great. So,
No, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I was like, it's got to be a phone or computer. I need it on a small screen.
yeah.
Yeah, the smaller the better. If you could
Yep.
find a Sony Watchman, little tiny TV that's the size of like a Game Boy game,
Can you watch
perfect.
stuff on your Apple Watch? Like that would
Yeah.
be perfect. I
That would have been, yeah, that might be the perfect resolution for that rip. That's for
think it
sure.
might be.
Speaking of ripping, we've kind of gotten to the end of this. We've ripped on it enough. I think it's time to go to our popcorn ratings and recommendations and all that good stuff, our final thoughts. But before we actually start that, I have a question for the room. This movie was part of a series of made for TV movies called A Moment of Truth. Has anyone seen any of the other A Moment of Truth movies?
I have
I don't
not.
think so.
Because there are some amazing looking ones out there, and we may have to come back and revisit these because, like, there's a couple more ones with Danica McKellar. There's one with Dee Wallace Stone. There's like four with Lachlan Monroe,
Must
Oh.
have like a
which
contract or
Hmm.
something, man. Like we couldn't
Yeah.
make all these at once, but
yeah,
good for them.
he was a contract player for NBC, I guess.
I mean, hey, good work if you can get it.
Yeah, there's
Honestly,
one
I
with
bet it
like
comes with full dental.
yeah, there's one with like Susan Blakely. Like there's all of these. There's all kinds of ones of these. Like there's one about fraternities called Moment of Truth Broken Pledges, and I don't know anything about it, but it looks amazing.
That
So
sounds truly amazing.
Stay
Yeah.
tuned for Truthcember when we
ah
Ooh, I love it. Truth Simber, we're here.
No
That's
Hallmark Christmas movies here. No siree.
no, we're gonna do something even worse. But speaking of even worse, it's time for final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. Lindsay, what say you for good old Justice for Annie?
I I was I don't even know how I feel about made for TV movies anymore. I know that I don't like Hallmark Christmas movies. I appreciate them because every female in my family adores them, of all ages, and they start watching them in July, which may be why I have a distaste for those movies in particular. So I don't find myself watching them often, nor did I find myself watching made-for-TV movies often when I was younger. However, this one was so, I honestly, and we've already said it, I went into this knowing nothing except that, Ron, you had a connection to it because you you had this teacher. So that was pretty much the only thing I knew. And I got pretty wrapped up in it. I watched it on my laptop, like the kitchen table, and I watched it all the way through. I think I paused one point for, I don't know, a meeting or something dumb. Um and then watched it the rest of the way through. And I really was on the edge of my seat for a bit. I mean, there were a lot of the made for TV movie tropes that you expect. The score was, really standard, but the acting was good, and the plot was, I thought, riveting, again, not knowing anything going into it. So I would say that I would recommend it, especially if you haven't seen it. And, I don't know, give it a go. Try to watch a better version than we did. But even then, the grainy version I thought was watchable because I watched it all the way through. It was fine. Um, they left some things out. They could have taken it a different route in a few things, but overall, I enjoyed the watch. And if it wasn't so grainy, I would have watched it on a bigger TV, with probably my Brian, but I didn't. And he may have liked it, he may have not, but I liked it, and I'm going to give it a solid medium popcorn. Long story long, I would recommend it. And, you know, it wasn't even close to as bad as I thought it was going to be.
All
So
right.
that's the key. Set the bar low, and you'll never be disappointed.
That's good. That's great to hear. If you're listening to this podcast, you've already set the bar pretty low. So,
Hey, in the words of the late great Doug Hopkins from the Gin Blossoms, yeah, if you don't expect too much from me, you might not be let down. And that's a good way to think about this movie too. I'll echo what Lindsay said. As somebody who did grow up watching these kind of things, this is right in my wheelhouse of like, okay, yeah. And you said it early on, Lindsay, and I agree with it 100%. This is just goes down real easy. It's pretty light, doesn't require a whole lot of brain. You can just put it on. And if it's a testament at all to it, I watched this entirely all the way through twice, y'all, on a big TV. So I wanted to be like, did I miss this? I want to see this again. I want to watch this again. And so I did, and got a chance to watch it again before we recorded tonight. And I'm glad I did. I didn't know the story. I Googled it before, watching it, obviously, so I knew what was going to happen, but I didn't know it, and I was intrigued by it. And have subsequently like gone through a couple of my favorite true crime podcasts. Like, they ever talk about this one? And they haven't, but several have. And I thought, I may dig one of those up someday just to see what it's all about. But no, I had a good time with it. It is cheesy. There's a lot to poke fun of and make fun of and stuff, but I still think it's elevated by some good performances, and it's worth watching. So it's a medium popcorn for me.
yeah, and I knew the story. Like, you couldn't escape the story living in Louisville in 1996. And you couldn't escape hearing about it when you had her in class. She didn't like mention it in class or anything, but how the rumor mill goes. After your class, they'd be like, "Hey, did you hear about Miss So and So's daughter? They're gonna make a movie about it. She got thrown off a cliff. It's an insurance thing." And that has stuck in my brain for 20 years plus at this point. To the point where I remembered that they had made a movie about it. I searched her actual name, the teacher's actual name, found my way to this movie, and then dropped it into the group chat saying, "You guys got to check this out. This is my social studies teacher in my sophomore year." or whichever year it was. I'm going to say sophomore year, which would have been 96 or 97.
And we
96
said,
slash 97.
obviously, we're making an episode
Yeah, I
on
mean,
this.
yeah, that's
Yeah, and then immediately everybody was like, let's make an episode on it. And I think that it was worthy of an episode. I think it's a great example of like what TV movies used to be. I think it's a good example of what made-for-TV movies probably will be going forward, as everybody decides, shit, we can't pay $200 million to make a sci-fi epic for Amazon anymore because there's no way we could ever get that money back. And it's all just going, straight to Chris Pratt. Let's try to figure out a way to make 20 movies for $200 million. You're going to get a lot of Justices for Annie, probably on Tubi as Tubi original movies. But that's not saying a bad thing. These movies serve a purpose. They're 2 hours or an hour and a half of entertaining stuff. It's going to be good enough to hook you. There's going to be some pretty good performances. It's not going to be a challenging watch. It's going to play with your emotions in the exact ways you expect it to and somehow still work. And so that I will join the gang in a good, solid, buttery, medium popcorn. Small popcorn budget elevated by large popcorn acting makes a nice medium popcorn for me. Definitely worth seeking it out, especially if you don't watch the VHS rip and you watch the other rip that's better. And who knows? This may be the start of a new version of Unauthorized, where we just do NBC's Moment of Truth series of movies and see what, I don't know, Scott Baio as a cannibal or whatever the hell they got going on for us.
There is one called Cradle of Conspiracy, where a young man seduces teenage girls and then sells their babies. And I'm just automatically like, I'm in. Danica McKellar and Dee Wallace are Stone are in this, and I'm like, I'm in.
They're
Say
in
less.
it?
Yes.
Ooh.
I'm like, say less. I'm in.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube, and it looks like the same crappy kind of VHS rip that we just watched. So
Perfect. Let's do it. Jay, send it to us.
yes.
Yeah, and the fraternity one I talked about was a stars Dallas's Linda Gray.
Oh my goodness! Now that's right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, and then there's another one with Beth Broderick. Like, there may be something to this. This may be like an authentic like thing we're going to revisit.
Just every now and then come back to these. I think so. Yeah. So.
Wow.
But we're not going to do that this week. We're going to bring our podcast experience to a close. You can find and follow us on social media at Filmstrip Pod, where we share announcements about upcoming shows as well as other fun content. Don't forget to subscribe and share the show. Bonus points if you leave us a positive review, as it helps other people find our podcast, and it makes us feel really good about ourselves. This is the part where I'll specifically shill the YouTube version of the show, which has gotten some surprisingly good traction. But go give it some 5 stars, give it some shares, subscribe to the channel, listen to it. I would love to, before I die of old age, to have one of those 100,000 subscriber golden stars on YouTube or whatever the hell they give you. That would be really cool to have. I mean, I wouldn't have it. Jay would have it, but
no,
he would take a picture of it and show it to me, and I would feel really good
I would
about
mail
myself.
that to you just because I know you would want it. So
Of course I'd want it.
Yeah.
I'd pawn it.
The currency of the future will be social media clout.
Exactly. Give me some social credit score, China. But that's enough for this time. Until next time, for Jay and Lindsey, thank you for listening to Filmstrip.
Thank you for listening to Filmstrip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Filmstrip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.